Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hansen, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all on this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. This is Rick Hansen with Ricky Bruley and Emily Hawgood. She is an ultra marathoner. She's quite the athlete. We feel so lucky to be able to chat with her today. She just ran a 50K yesterday, and she's sitting here with a smile on her face and willing to chat with the Don't Die Rusty Nation. So I want to thank you for coming on, Emily.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a great way to start the day.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on so early in the morning. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, it's interesting to see, like, you ran a race a couple of weeks ago, you ran this race yesterday, and then you're on here talking to us. And Don't Die Rusty is about moving your body, your mind, your soul. And anyway, but I want to start out. You grew up in Africa, Zimbabwe.
Right.
The interesting thing I saw is you ran barefoot.
I did.
And right now I couldn't run barefoot if I tried, because I'd probably step on a little pebble and I'd be hopping along and step on another pebble or whatever. But it was interesting to me because you grew up on a farm. You said you ran barefoot. I'm going to date myself here. The last African runner I knew was Zola Budd.
Yeah.
And she ran barefoot in the Olympics.
Right.
And, and then she had that little run-in at the Olympics with, now I can't think of her name. I could see her too. But it was interesting that, huh?
I'm blanking as well.
I could see her face too. Anyway, but it's interesting that did you run far? It said you ran track and you ran cross country barefooted. Was there ever an advantage of that, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, because I grew up on the farm, so we didn't really wear shoes ever. And me and my brother had a bad habit too of forgetting our shoes at home when we went to town. My mom would say like, "Oh, you guys got got shoes," and say yeah, and then we get to town and we wouldn't have, so we'd walk around barefoot too. And then yeah, I mean, and it wasn't super far. Like I don't think our cross country races were further than 5K growing up, through school. And it was, I mean, we ran everywhere barefoot, and it was fine. I don't know, our feet were just tough. I think it was an advantage just because we weren't afraid of, I don't know, like we're just used to that. So that's what we did.
I do have to agree with you though that, I mean, it's interesting. We're in the northern part of the United States, Ricky and I are. And I'd get in trouble if I didn't take my snow boots to school when it was snow time. Or like we had a little slide. It wasn't a big slide, but in grade school we had a little slide. It's snowing out and it was more slippery to wear your tennis shoes out and slide down the slide. And we one of my friends got a big lesson out of that because he broke his arm, but we were going fast. That's all we really cared. But and you're forgetting shoes to go into school. You know what I mean? It's just interesting. But when I lived in Australia, I agree with you there because I went barefoot a lot of places, and I think my feet did get tougher, except for on those hot days where you're hopping and skipping on the bitumen.
Yeah. Yep. Blisters.
Exactly. But then I came back here and now I'm wearing shoes all the time because we're just in a different climate. So it's just interesting. So
yeah, and it's interesting because when I came to college, that was when I started wearing shoes, and mountains and all of that. And I didn't know. I just was like, oh, this is so different from where I'm at. Like, if I'm traveling the world, like, I may as well go somewhere so different. And it just looked beautiful. And yeah, so then I picked U of I to be one of the schools I applied to. And then accidentally, I applied to the College of Idaho and the University of Idaho at the same time.
Mhm.
I did half of each application, and then I was trying to get in contact with the coaches, but as an international, I didn't actually like come on a scholarship or anything. I just wanted to make
Mhm.
contact to see if I could get on any of the teams, and they were all like, "You got to get over here! Like, they really know who you are." And so Pat got my email kind of by accident because I was emailing him trying to get hold of the U of I coach, and he emailed me back and said, "Which coach are you looking for? Like the University of Idaho or the College of Idaho?" I'm at the College of Idaho, and I went back on my emails and realized they were different because I'd just been assuming everything was
Yeah.
the same. Um, and so I got accepted at the College of Idaho. And so I started looking at the college, and I don't know, it was nice. It was a small liberal arts college, and that's how I ended up going over there. Pat corrected me.
Well, we're very thankful for Pat to give us information to get in touch with you too. So that was awesome because when we talked, it was like I have a few people that you might be interested in talking to because
Awesome.
I want to I want to talk to you about I we'll get back into the running stuff, but you that I understand that's probably a big part of your yeah, well, I know it's a big part of your life, but what do you do for fun? What keeps Emily ticking besides running and training?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Some people have like recently asked that. And when you say running, like immediately to me, it includes all these other things that you got to do with running, especially as a professional athlete. Like hopping on podcasts and um, meeting people like for coffee. That happens like weekly.
Yeah.
Um, just sharing information or just chatting, being a part of different projects and photo shoots. I get to travel the world, which is amazing. I love it. Full competition, but then to support teammates. um, so that keeps me really busy, and then going to the gym every day, hopping in the pool, doing my like daily routine, getting all the recovery stuff into like compression boots, all of that. I love playing disc golf. So getting my
There you
disc
go.
golf game in. I love reading. Last night I read for like 2 hours, which was amazing, just chilling on the couch and reading. I have a cat, so she keeps me entertained and busy. She's like super little, and she only has a little tail because in Idaho she got attacked by something and it broke the end, and she was like attacking it, so we had to amputate it. But she's the cutest bobcat ever. And then where I'm living right now, I'm helping friends like house sit, and so I take
Mhm.
care of their house, and they have a big yard and a swimming pool, so I do all the yard work and uh, clean the pool and trim the roses, and yeah, it keeps me really busy, which I love. Uh, yeah, and then traveling has been super fun. And this year, I've managed to travel with my family actually to Tasmania earlier in the year. That was really really special, and it's been a long time since we've all been able to travel together. So hoping to do more of that too.
Well, interesting. What'd you do in Tasmania? Just travel and holiday or when you were
Yeah,
there with your family?
we actually had friends from Zim who used to live in Zim who moved to Australia. Oh, I think like 2008.
Uh-huh.
I think that's what they said. Anyways, so that's my dad's best friend, but then my brother, because he had gone over there, was is also best friends with his son, and so he was getting married. So we managed, and he lives in Australia, but his parents have retired and live half their time in Tassie, half in Australia. So we got to go and spend time with his parents and travel and explore, and yeah, it was awesome.
Well, awesome. That is great. What
Mhm.
kind of books do you read? You
Everything. What was I reading? What am I reading right now? I don't have it right here. The one about the 5,000 meter runner who during the war, during goodness. Wait, I gotta find it.
I'm currently trying to do a Google search to see if I can get lucky and find something, but not having any luck here.
I would have to do the same.
Yeah.
All I can see is the
I thought
official world.
Unbroken.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm reading right now. It's so
Because
good. You read it? Huh?
it it would have bothered me not knowing the title of the book, so I would have had to go do the same thing. So that's what I'm saying.
Perfect. Good, good. I know I need to be organized and have my props right next to me.
Because see, I read a lot of books too. It's funny how one book will grab you and another book will just like
Yeah.
put you to sleep. It's so.
Yeah, growing up, me and my dad would read like the Harry Potter books whenever they came out. And when they would come out, we would like share them, so be reading the same book at the same time. So he would read until he fell asleep, then I would read until I fell asleep. And would share it that way. Yeah, and then out in Idaho it's been really fun, like getting out in the mountains a lot, getting to go hunting, and I've been fishing a few times, like on the rivers and stuff. Actually, when my parents came out, took them fishing a bunch. Shed hunting is a big deal, so I love going in the mountains to do that. Have a few
Well,
of those over there.
I love.
Mm.
Well, you should come to South Dakota sometime, and I would take you
Yeah,
out. It because
cool.
that's an interesting thing there because my wife never really grew up around that stuff, and then I took her shed hunting, and when you find your first shed, then it's like, let's keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
When can we go next? So
Uh-huh.
it'd be fun to take you out and show you some places. Uh, there's a shed up above me that I just found. I got lucky during a hunting season that I found it, but I want to go find. I know he's still out there, so I'm hoping to find those sheds myself.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I know. I love it. It's like a treasure hunt for adults.
It is, and it's peaceful, and it's good
Mhm.
for you, and it's just an amazing. It, it, it's amazing because like there's sometimes when I take you're not, but when you take a first time shed hunter out there, and it's something about you see that like since you've been out shed hunting before, you see that antler somewhere before that other person that hasn't been, and like I don't say really anything. I just like start either I'll get a little further away because they don't, and they'll start following me over, and then I'll start to kind of guide them into that first antler and not say anything, and to see that light in their eyes, like I just found this horn, it's just amazing.
Yeah,
Mm.
I know. It's super fun.
Have you been to the Black Hills before, Emily?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's
But
like no other place in the
Okay,
world. Honestly, it's very very unique. So you definitely got to get over there and check it out.
awesome. Yeah. Oh, it's on the list.
and I always and like it's funny because here's another funny thing because my wife and I have only been married like 3 years. We dated a long time, but she gets used to me saying we've had so many different people stay at our house because I say come on and stay at the house, and so you're always invited.
Thank you.
So if you're in the Spearfish, South Dakota area, you're always invited. So
Perfect. That sounds awesome.
yes. So, but and you've been hunting then?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't like I don't go to shoot. I just go spotter and packer, and I love it. Again, just stays out in the mountains, and I can sit and stare through a scope or binos for hours. It's so beautiful.
Well, so do you have any races like in September?
Yeah. And well, it varies, and I try and keep it open, so I don't because of hunting season.
Well, that's where I was going with this because I might be alone and need a packer. So I'm
Okay.
hoping I need a packer. So I'm just going to invite you up to maybe help me pack out something.
You might have to play with my other coach because that's what he employs me to do.
Okay.
Oh, you have to steal you away from Pat.
Yeah. My other coach, Paul, he's the one who hunts a lot too.
But it growing up on a farm and being in Zimbabwe and being in America, and you get to see these things that other people don't understand because you're in a sport where I don't see a lot of hunters or people like that. You know, I, it's interesting because I became a big ultra runner fan. I knew about ultra running, and it's funny because I had a friend here in South Dakota I met, and he started Endure Elite. His name was Matt Mossam. He was a 2 mile runner. And he did other things, but when I asked him, it was about hunting because I wanted to learn about endurance. Because you know as well as I know, sometimes you don't get anything, but you get back at dark, get up at dark, and I wanted to learn how to recover, and if there was any supplements I could do to recover besides just being in shape and eating. And he helped me out with that. And it's interesting to see that you the acceptance of hunting. I don't know how to say it, but the acceptance of more people understanding that this is great organic food,
Hmm.
and it's good for your heart and good for your soul actually to get out in those woods and to see stuff. And Ricky and I, and we eat everything we get, and that's the other part of my relationship with my wife is she ate wild game, but she didn't. Like, she'd come out and say, "What are we eating?" when I cook her a meal, and I just pulled it out of the freezer. I don't know if it's deer or elk, or it's certainly not a fish or a bird. We can tell that because it's red meat, you know what I mean? But it's
Right.
interesting the health benefits that people are starting to see about just the whole experience of hunting. And this isn't a hunting podcast per se, but we all do it. Well, all of us, I mean, Ricky and I do it, and it's interesting to see. And then I saw Courtney Dauwalter, who went on Cam Haines's, and then it's just accepting. And I like seeing that turn of where we can go with the natural habitat, not natural habitat, natural way of life more, I guess. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about here sometimes, but
Don't
I
worry,
just
we got
like
it.
but I liked it. It's interesting to hear you packing out an elk or packing out a deer or packing out whatever.
I
I'm
think the
doing that.
biggest thing
Go
is
ahead.
that like I travel the world, or our endurance, um, running community is built up with people from everywhere. And you tell someone in Europe who hasn't had the experience of going hunting with someone, and they're like, "Why would you do that? You're killing the thing." It's just like a big no-no. It's met with a lot of hostility and lack of understanding, like you said. And like the first thing that drew me to hunting is, especially like out in Idaho, where I've done it, is that the family, tradition that comes with it, and the family adventure. That's when, my coach and his son get together and hang out and spend days in the mountains out there and camp and, look after each other and, I don't know, hang out. Like that's where quality time is spent. There's no service out there. And then they go exploring, and and I've been hunting with them so many times. I think I've packed out two animals.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand either. Like even with shade hunting, like sure, the days we find a bunch, we're gonna take a picture and it's gonna be like, oh, look at this. And little do they know we've hiked, you know, 20 hours the day before and found nothing. Um, and that whole experience is where, like, oh, if people could just learn that and understand that, I think we'd have so much more understanding in the world. And like you said, then there'd be so much more benefits of like getting the right meat, getting the right food, being outside. Just so yeah, so much more understanding for people who do hunt, and the family side of it for me was just so cool. I was like, oh yeah, this is this is what everyone needs to be doing.
And that's it. I like that you say the family aspect of that, because that was my dad worked a ton, as we did Ricky's, and that was our time to be together with our dads. I mean, to truly be as we're growing up. And I have I grew up in a time where it was tough. They people were tough. I think a tougher time. Like, we had an annual. I didn't get to go on because I was just a baby at the time. But this is what I hear, because from the stories is my dad in November they always came out to the Black Hills deer hunting, and my little sister was born on November 18th, and my dad would be gone for a week, and my dad went hunting in the Black Hills on November 19th.
Yeah.
But I mean, but it was always a family thing where we were going to, and I like to hear the family aspect, because there are things that you see out in the woods. Like, I had an elk, and you know how it was on top of a hill, and the frost and the sage and the steam coming out of its nose, and we never got it, but I have that picture in my head for the rest of my life, and it'll never leave, and those are the things that we get to see. I just think that that's one of those magical things that very few people really get to understand about that stuff. So
Yeah, for sure. And that's why, like, even since I started running, like long distance stuff, I always traveled. My family was really good at taking us places, which was nice. But when I started doing this, I was like, okay, I got to go back because I got to run wherever I travel. Because I feel like even just going for a run, you see so much more that you would never see either walking around just with everyone or driving. It's just a different world, and that's the same with hunting. Because even with running, like, you run through places really quickly, whereas hunting, or shed hunting, you sit for, well, not shed hunting too much, but
yeah.
hunting, you just sit in one place. So by the time you leave that spot, you've seen so much. Like,
And you
explaining to someone, like, you gotta look at that spot 50 times. There might be a deer there. You won't see it unless you look at it 50 times and the light shines just right.
definitely. That is, and you see the little things. You get to pick out those little things that you might see the glimmer of a tip of a horn or something like that. And it's amazing how the animals can hide
Mhm.
in such in so many different places. So that's very cool. I just found that interesting, because I just think that people need to understand that it's not the emotional stuff. It's the emotional stuff for me about hunting comes with us being together, like,
Mhm.
and getting to experience and live the family experience. And I go alone, but I go with people, and it's fun to see just the difference in their faces and in their enjoyment of being out in the woods.
I love that. One of the things that I just wanted to point out, because we said this in some previous episodes, right? And Rick's like, I just want everybody to know that this isn't a hunting podcast, but it may become a theme, or maybe something that we end up talking about. And naturally, it's part of what brought Rick and I together. I mean, more or less, just shooting a bow, I think, is really what led to us meeting and getting to know each other. But then just all the connections that we're making with other people. So we know that it's naturally going to come up. And I love how the conversation is, when the topic comes up, we talk a lot about, like you're talking about, family and connections and relationships and all of those things. And that's where it's really important. I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is it is a lifestyle, just getting more out into nature and spending time in those places that provide that therapy. So I think,
Mhm.
there's a lot of, I think everybody needs therapy in some shape or form. And whether it's through the wilderness or it's through a therapist, and that's up to you, however you get it. That's why we really want to promote adventures and getting out in nature and doing those kinds of things. And running naturally is going to get you into those places. And like you said, I love how you said that, where you're going to see more places because you're moving further. So that's
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, it's nice too. Like these conversations are so good. I actually from hunting camp, I think, oh yeah, the radio is called Bob and Tom radio.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys have heard of Bob and Tom?
Oh
I've
yeah.
heard of
And
Bob and Tom.
like, and like they just talk about anything for a few hours in the morning.
Yep.
And I swear everyone in the world should have that therapy of like just listening to anything. Like talk about anything, but don't talk about anything important. Just just banter and like
Mhm.
it's so good. I love that you said that because like yes, that's just like one highlight of, you know, like you said, therapy for everyone, but in different ways of like we're not calling it therapy because it's just a way of life.
Mhm.
No,
Absolutely.
and it's interesting because like I don't when I go camping, I stay in a tent.
Hmm.
And this is even in December, we stay in a tent, and what's interesting about it is waking up in the morning and nobody wants to really get out of their warm sleeping bag, but yet
Yep.
yet we do because and then when you get out the energy that starts flowing and then we get to see the go start moving and it's usually before light and then but there's nothing like sitting on that frosty hill or frosty mountain or wherever you are and watch that sunrise come up and feel the energy and
Mhm.
and have that whole aspect. I have I have one deer that I shot that I was really that really hit, I will never forget because my dad was sitting beside me and he said great shot to me, and and we were in Montana, and it's just one of those things. Like I'll never forget that because, like I said, he's a farmer, worked all the time, and you
Mhm.
know that kind of lifestyle where if the sun's shining, there's work to be done,
Mhm.
and it was just nice to have him beside me and say that. So um, I truly appreciate that stuff. But I read an article about you since I was researching about you, and the endurance you have a you have this mindset that I read about that you have that grit and never quit attitude, which that's another thing in the woods that y- you know is interesting to me because some people see a mountain and a mile away and say that's too far to go and I'm going to turn around here, but to have that grit to keep on going over to the next mountain and you never know what you might see. That's interesting to me. So I it's I'm interested to hear some of your because when you started doing I'm getting back into your ultras now a little bit here for a second, but when you 100-mile race you run in the Western States or UTMB. uh, I watch this stuff on social media. Watch it. I've become a big fan, and it because before you have to admit before you had trackers on, how would anybody know where you're at or what you're doing or what you're seeing? But
Yeah.
now with trackers, I can watch athletes and see where
Mhm.
they are and learn strategies and I think you can teach us something about the strategies of life because in our intro it says life is sometimes a sprint and sometimes an endurance race
Mhm.
and I can't you can either start out too fast and then you break down or you should have gave it a little more here than there and it's interesting. So what's probably your two or three favorite races to run as a ultra runner?
Um, Definitely. Sorry, mosquito. Definitely Western States and UTMB are two of my favorites. Those are the biggest races out
Yeah.
there too, and so different in so many different ways. Even just the number of people that are out there, but then the terrain's just so different and so unique. Western States has become like a home race. The finish is 20 minutes up the road, so that's amazing. I've built a really good connection with the trails and then the community. And Gordy Ainsley, the first guy that ran
Yeah.
ran that far, I run his cool Yule Jingle Jog at Christmas time. Um, and again, like, it's more than just a run. It's been amazing because it's created way more, and it takes a bigger spot in my life, which has been cool. And I've realized that more and more, that those are the races that mean a lot. And then you travel to new places. Like, last year I went down to Argentina. That was just, I'd never been to South America, and I got to, explore. Got to see somewhere new and meet new people. That was amazing. And then UTMB is amazing. I usually spend about a month there each year for the race. Get to spend it with my team, and we just live in the houses together and make food and train and hang out. It's amazing. And then you have runners from all around the world that come for, like, the series final. And then the race itself, this is also a nice spot for, like, hunting and things, but you run through the night. So you start at 6 p.m. and then everyone runs through the first night together. And then through all the the next day. And you are challenged with so many more things because it just takes longer. The terrain's not as runnable as Western States. So you're out there for longer. You have to eat more. It's a lot of different weather too, so you freeze at some points and you boil at
Mm.
others. um, yeah, I don't know, there's, like, different mindsets. I love that you brought up, like, the grind phase, or that way of life type thing. Like, how do you keep going when you don't know what you see or anything? So there, like you said, there's, like, two well-known ways of life, of, like, everything's going well and you're having a great time and everything's good. And then there's the grind phase where things might not be going well, you might not feeling good, or so, it's problems with family or things like that. And there's kind of the survival mode. The thing that ultra running has shown me, maybe over the past couple years even more, is that there's another mode, or another, like, way of life, which I've really tried to embrace recently. And that is, like, when you are in that grind mode, or when things aren't going perfectly, how can we, and this probably is for the perfect for the podcast, but, like, how can we celebrate life? How can we get the most out of ourselves even though things aren't going right? So it's not just a survival, it's how do we thrive right now even when things are not um looking perfect. So that's what I've kind of been working on, even just in racing, but then in life in general, and just having conversations to, like, see what you can do. If it comes down to trusting people, there's a lot of times in the world you get to know people really well and you stop trusting them because of letdown, or miscommunication or things like that. But, like, I told my mom the other day, I was like, I don't want to go around the world not trusting people. So
Yeah.
what are we gonna do? Like, let's figure this
Exactly.
out.
Ex-
um,
Well, and that's interesting because I I see that grind that you're talking about, and it's interesting. And why I say it's interesting is I've done 6 peaks in South Dakota in one day, and now Ricky, now he doesn't know what he's getting into. Maybe I don't
No,
know, but
I don't.
I,
No.
I'm gonna do 7 peaks in 24 hours. It's
yep.
not a race; it's a challenge to myself, and it's not. We're not world class athletes like you, but it's the challenge. I think of challenges for me, eh, for what I myself. It's
Mhm.
and last year was the toughest one I've ever done. I don't know what happened. Physiologically, I don't know what happened because we did one peak, we did one peak, and then I think the problem was we we did Harney Peak or Black Elk Peak in South Dakota, and then we went to Crazy Horse, and there's 500 people because you can only do it in one day. They do a Volks March there, and we wanted to get ahead of people because we're on a timeline here, and then it's traveling between places too. It's not like it's one race or one deal. We
Mhm.
have some places you got to drive an hour to climb that next mountain or whatever, and I got to Bear Butte, and I'm like, this is the third one, and I have 3 more to go, after this, and I'm feeling like crap. And like, I'm going to be embarrassed on social media because I'm not going to finish this thing because I am feeling terrible. But,
Mhm.
but I said, I finally, I think the, I started getting rehydrated a little bit, and then we got to the top and there was some fresh air in there because there's like a dead space. You might experience too in some of your races. It's like there was finally I got above the mountains where there was some air movement where I just felt like I had it wasn't like a dead space, and then it kind of started giving me a new life of new energy back, and then we got down to the bottom and I started feeling better, and we finished it up. But this year we're going to do 7, and it's roughly going to be about 46, 47 miles and about 8,000 vertical feet. And we'll see how we do. But maybe we'll be having to call you and say, hey, what do you think we should do and train a little bit better here or there,
Yeah, please do. No, that sounds like an amazing challenge. I love it.
I know that I'm definitely going to need some help in that area, and it's funny you say that, Rick. I'm what a lot of people would call a flatlander, and I've spent some time in the mountains, but not as much as probably as I'd like to. And
Mhm.
as you were talking about the grind, um, Rick, it's funny you mentioned the 7 peaks, because that's what was going through my head as you were talking about that, and I'm thinking just kind of started to have a panic moment about how little time we have, little time I have to prepare for that. And then I went into thinking about how, in some cases I just need somebody to tell me I can't do it, and then I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it, because like a good example is, and ironically, I was preparing for an elk hunt in Idaho, and the senior pastor of my church, I was having a conversation with him about that, and he said, "Well, good luck. You won't get an elk." And I don't think he was saying that to be mean. He was just, he's just very, very blatantly honest and saying it's very difficult, for your first
Right.
time, if you've never been there, if you've never done it, that sort of thing. But that was going through my head the whole time. Um,
Mhm.
there was no amount of training I could do here in Minnesota that would prepare me for the elevation in Idaho. And the first day I got there, I was like just not feeling good at all. And it didn't take long for my body to show up. And then in every instance where, you're looking at this huge valley that you got to climb out of, and you're just like, oh boy, all right, here we go, and now it's dark. You're hiking out in the middle of the night, and um, I just kept thinking about what he said. Good luck, you won't get one. And that's the drive that kept me going and kept me moving. And then the more that I did that, then the more my body kind of started to show up, and I was able to get through some of that. But I'm definitely going to need some help in ensuring that I stay properly hydrated, have the proper nutrition, all of those kinds of things, because uh, yeah, that's going to be the longest I've ever ran straight at one time is a 10K. So
Mhm.
and I've done plenty of miles in the mountains, but not all in one sit. So yeah, we'll definitely be uh, asking questions amongst a lot of different people to try to make sure that I can get through it.
Yeah, perfect. Because you definitely can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're one step ahead that you've spent days hunting out there. So,
Yeah.
So what do you find, because Don't Die Rusty is about living a fulfilled life, not just a filled life, and
Mhm.
about living your dreams and chasing them. And do you find, what do you find, like yesterday after you won the race,
Mhm.
um, is that more fulfilling than the training to take up to that race? Or where do you think is what fulfills your life in your, because you're a professional athlete. I mean, what is the most fulfilling? Like, some people say championship, some people say it's getting to the championships. It's not so much that I've won, it's that it's what it took for me to get there that has fulfilled me, if you understand what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah, I fully understand. And I have lucked out that my passion became my job. So yeah, I'm super lucky. I mean, I would be doing this even if I wasn't a professional athlete. Obviously, I'd have to do a lot of other things too to
Mhm.
make a living and things, but I luck out. So every day that I get to go out, be it practice or competition or rest day and just eating right or spending time in the mountains, taking a down week and getting to go shade hunting for a week, like all of that to me is fulfilling. And yeah, that's where I thrive. I'm so lucky and so, yeah, so grateful. But yeah, I love it all. There's all magic to all parts. I couldn't like pick one. If you said, yesterday, um, yesterday, like on a personal level, it was actually a struggle of a race. So yes, I still won, but there's a lot of things that maybe had me a little bummed at the end.
Mm.
um, but like the journey to get there and the things we've been working on and practice every day, or making my recovery be on point, or trying to get like Ricky was saying, like trying to make sure you're hydrated and eating right the whole time. Like there's so many different parts, which makes it all so exciting.
Mm.
And I to me personally, I mean, I create these things in my head, like the 7 peaks, or it started out 5 and then it went to 6 and now it's to 7. I don't think we can logistically do any more than that because of the drive time. The fulfilling thing is you never know what's going to happen. You don't know weather-wise, and you don't know, and that's the adventure keeps me going. Like, we don't know what's around the corner or what's up to the top of the hill. Like, I was we have this peak, Crow Peak, that's what I train on. That's just like my home or my church or whatever you want to call it, because that's where I let everything go, and that's where I just start feeling better. But there's a couple times I'm going up and there's like an inch and a half, 2 inches of fresh snow, and there's mountain lion tracks on the same trail I am going right up the mountain too. And it's not that I'm afraid. It's just that
Mhm.
this isn't this cool that there's something ahead of me here, and it's not, I actually like it better with the headlamps on, because my headlamp on, because you can see eyes.
Mhm.
I
Mm.
see deer eyes, I see other eyes. So it doesn't really bother me on the way up. Just I know there's something else here. But what I like is that not nothing is fulfilling to me if you don't have a little struggle to get to that point. Like, we have to struggle, like we have to train. You have to train, but you also can. When you get to a point, you win the race. You struggled, but you won. Or like, we'll struggle on our 7 peaks, but they'll be, if we get them all done, then we have. It's not really a win. It's just an accomplishment.
Mhm.
And I also I have this theory that there's no good adventure goes the way it's supposed to go. The adventure is when something goes wrong that you have to figure it out in your head to
Yep.
fix the problem.
Hmm.
Right. But also, if you just, I know this sounds weird and people have given me a hard time about it before, but also if you just don't see it as a problem, you just see it as like an adventure, a part of the adventure. Like,
Yep.
okay, you got a flat tire. Okay, well, let's see how good your, tire changing skills
Hmm.
are, and trying to adjust like that. And I find myself doing that a lot in my mind too. Of like, okay, how do you adjust this situation? Because like even yesterday, so when things kind of turned south a little bit, like immediately you're going to back to like, well, what could I have done differently? And at one point I pretty much had to not stop, but I was like moving, and I just had to be like, stop thinking like that. It doesn't even matter right now.
Hmm.
Like, you're in this moment right now. What can you do? You want to make this day great. Like, what can you do? And a lot of times it takes those pep talks of like, okay, what's really important right now?
It's it's funny that you say that because back in when I used to do a lot of me and friends would take a lot of trips, uh, hunting trips and stuff out west, and they would joke about stopping hunting with me because I don't know if I'm bad luck or what, but we would always have something happen. Bear hunting, spring bear hunting in the mountains of Montana, and we get a flat tire, way up there in the middle of nowhere. Can't get the spare tire off, so we literally have to use a cheap Leatherman tool to like file the cable that's holding the spare, things like that. And so I started titling a lot of those albums back in the day when Instagram didn't really exist and it was all Facebook. You'd create an album, and I always titled them "The Storm Has Arrived," because it seemed like everywhere, any hunt that we would go on, there'd be some kind of storm. And I agree with you. It is. If you can just accept that it's part of the adventure and it's just part of the plan, then I think it makes it a little bit easier to get through. And before we go too far, I just wanted to go back just real quick, because I'm pretty new to the endurance and the ultra running thing. We talked a little bit about the UTMB racing series. Can you just talk a little bit more about that? Not just for me, but for our listeners. Can you talk a little bit more detail about what that is?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah, I know sometimes it just becomes second nature to talk about stuff. But yeah, so UTMB Ultra Trail Mont Blanc. It is, I mean, the original UTMB track is a course around the whole Mont Blanc Massif. And a bunch of people every year hike it and sleep in. They have like hotels up there. It's amazing in Europe. It's just a different world. You hike or run through 3 countries: France, Switzerland, and Italy. And yeah, it's incredible. But now there's a whole series in ultra running, and it's kind of the ultra running scene, and that's like our season final at the end of August, beginning of September. But now they've created a whole series, so there's races all around the world where you get points, and get to like qualify to be in that final race. There are 4 like official distances there. There's the 100-miler, or it's 107 miles, and that's the full UTMB course. And then there's CCC, which is the 100K. And then what is it? OCC is the 50K. And then they have TDS, which is kind of the adventure, another like adventure. I think it's like 98K, and they do it a little differently, so you divert off the course a bit. And then they have a couple of other races where they have like all the volunteers race it, and MCC and ECC, I think. But it's pretty much like the trail running party of the year. Just a week of events. There's like 10,000 people there. It's kind of wild, but pretty cool. And we all go to Chamonix. That's where all the finish lines are, which is pretty cool. And then Courmayeur is another big spot for that, because I think MCC goes there. I can't remember. And then they also have another one, which is kind of along the same lines of what you guys are doing with your peaks coming up. But they have an event called PTL, and there's 2 or 3 people that get together and they send you out in the mountains. But with ours, we follow a course. The PTL, I don't know if they even follow a course. They just have to like get to certain points, and it's like you have to have helmets, you have to clip in every once in a while. Like it's a full-on adventure. Yeah. And they start them off. They're the first race. They start them off on day 1, like Monday, 8 a.m. And they only get done like the last race, the last finisher, they're there with them too. So I think they have like 6 or 7 days to finish the whole trip too. It's pretty wild, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm looking on the UTMB.world website, and just this first page is just getting me pumped up. It's just like, man, this is really cool. So what do you think, Rick? Like 7 peaks this year and then the UTMB in 2025 or what?
Yeah, we'll go over and watch Emily race.
We'll pace with you for, a couple miles.
It would be fun to go over and watch that. You don't need a passport when you cross over into all the countries, though. You're on a run.
Yeah, we actually have to run with our passport and
really.
Yeah, because like technically, like you said, we're crossing border lines, so we should have something. They haven't ever stopped and asked me, but we have to have it. They have it as our like required gear. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know if you'd get stamped as you cross into
No,
Italy and
that'd be fun. I should have done that.
They gotta have like speed. They gotta have speed stampers there,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
NASCAR, where you're changing the tires. It's like, come on, hurry up.
That'd be awesome.
Here's a question for you too, because h- how many times in like a race like that do you change your shoes or socks?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those are good questions. So it's varied each year, and I'm still kind of figuring that out. The
Hmm.
first year I ran UTMB and states, each race I just ran with one pair of shoes, one pair of socks. Um, and then last year I was like just trying something. I just wanted to know like if I changed my shoes halfway or kind of halfway, would that make my feet feel better later? So that I don't know what it was great. I changed socks, changed shoes.
Hmm.
In Western states, your feet are always wet because you're trying to cool down. Usually, it's really hot out there, and so you're trying to stay wet. So your feet are just wet. So I didn't know if like changing my shoe actually made a difference because in the next 5 minutes my shoes were wet again. But I don't know. UTMB. Sometimes you can get into that like hard spot of like, oh, I really want to change my shoes, but then that's kind of what you focus on, and that becomes your like obsession that your feet are feeling bad or whatever, and you want to change your shoes at this aid station, then you want to change them at the next and the next, and it doesn't actually do anything for you. It's just kind of maybe a distraction because you aren't feeling good or something like that. So sometimes I'm just like, just leave it. I know I have a hot spot, or a couple blisters or whatever, but sometimes it's better maybe not to see
Yeah,
it.
well, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's varied. And then one year at UTMB, I struggled with my shoes, so I ended up forgetting to change my shoes at one of the aid stations and had to run for another 5 hours in the pair that was hurting me.
Oh
And so then changed, and then I was like, I wish I'd changed my shoes 5 hours earlier.
Yeah. I mean, like ours is different. Like I said, but like af- when you get into a vehicle and you're traveling to the next spot like we're hiking, but
Yeah.
changing the shoes and the socks, just like because I take off my shoes and socks as we're traveling, just
Mhm.
for that. Like if it's an hour to get to that point, I'm taking off my shoes and my socks, and I put on a new pair, and I go, this is heaven right now. Usually I only do it like we have one that's usually an hour to get to the next mountain, and
Yeah.
then everything happens quick after that, and you don't really change your shoes because you don't have time. But it's just like it was like a mental uplift. Like this really, not that it made my feet feel better, but maybe it made my mind feel better. And like this is
Mhm.
cool because they're going to get sweaty because it's in June here, so it's
Yeah.
warm too. But that's interesting. And so who's your who do you have as your pit crew? We'll say.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in the States, like for all the races, you can have unlimited crew. Um, so like at Western States, I think I've had like 10 people. It always includes my coach. And then if my parents come out, they hop in too. And then I have friends, they're really good at their jobs.
All right.
And that's really, yeah, it's awesome. It's just a full experience because then you have a bunch of people with you. And then, but over at UTMB, you can actually only have one person in the aid station with you. So I always have my coach because then if he's there, because then I can chat with him at the same time as I'm doing
mm,
stuff. But then I have friends that come over and my mom, and kind of get stuff ready for me. So I'll have like food ready, water ready, socks ready, those sort of things. And then my coach will just bring them all in and lay them out on the table and you just go through things. But yeah, that's part of the art, having
mhm.
the right people there.
Yes, and having the right like food ready to
Yeah,
eat just a little bit, and kind of your pit crew kinds of. I mean, like you have a close pit crew, I would assume, that knows Emily's coming in. She's not feeling good. This is like, or she is feeling good. Let's give her this stuff. So you just have energy in you. I
right.
mean, it's. I didn't like I said, I got into like watching and worrying about my endurance probably 10, 15 years ago, but it was like slowly getting into this stuff. And then I start watching you guys and I go, holy smokes, I'm sitting on a peak and I need to get over that other peak because there's elk over there, and I'll have a Cliff Bar and maybe a drink of this and that, and we'll get over there, but
Yeah.
it's interesting because watching you guys has taught me maybe I need a little more or maybe I need a little less, but because I here's what I see is like, and I have, if you eat what makes you feel comfortable at those times because you don't want to throw it all up. Like, I don't want to. I don't know if you'd want to eat spicy teriyaki chicken or something in the middle of the race. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a bland something that's good that just you want to get some energy in you, and it's interesting for me to watch that stuff. So yeah, maybe maybe Ricky and I will have to come down and cheer you on at the Western States and have big signs saying go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should. That'd be
Yeah.
really fun. I mean, it's super fun because we luck out that racing those big races is also fun because it's as much an eating game as it is a race. And I've craved the weirdest things out there. Like one day, all I wanted was chicken nuggets. Like,
Yeah.
then you eat one and it's like, no, I don't want that. But then at UTMB one year, I remember like my first year, I was like super down in the dumps when my crew saw me, and I was just kind of teary. I was feeling like moving fine, I was just tired. I don't know. And my crew found me and they're like, "What's wrong?" I just want a donut. So I found donuts.
Well, in and that is the coolest thing about ultra running people is because I want a donut. It's not like I need this so much kilograms of or milligrams of carbohydrates. I want a freaking donut.
Yeah. Yep.
And because sometimes I say I need that Dairy Queen Blizzard. I need it now.
Right? Yeah, I have it.
So I know you've been on here for. You probably have a race to go run right now in about 10 minutes, and one final question that because sometimes it goes on, but what's the good life to Emily?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of chatted about it all, but having good people, respect for, everyone around you and what you get to do, and kind of just living life to the full. My dad grew up telling us like every day, like carpe diem, seize the day.
Mm.
And that's kind of just been some guiding force. You can't do life alone. I mean, how boring would that be? So grateful for friends and family and everyone for opportunities and just the love and support. And um, I mean, I'm a girl of faith, so I love God. I love being out in the mountains and just being able to spend time. That's definitely my church. So yeah, for me, that's super fulfilling. Yeah, and trying not to let the struggles like get you down and trying to rise above it and strive. Don't just survive.
I love that.
Ricky and I are looking at each other, going, "This is awesome right here." I know that
It's
because
it's just becoming such a common theme as far as what the good life is for everybody, and I love that because we're driving it home.
Yeah.
So
because when you said like the faith stuff and being in the woods, and that's kind of where we go to because it's just one of those things that it we all don't need to believe the same thing as long as we know that there's something bigger than us out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're trying to do is say there's more to, and to live every day because it's a blessing. We can all try to strive and live the healthiest and best life we can, but we don't know what if there's going to be a meteor fall from the sky and we're not going to be here anymore. And living the life and getting to see people that are living and have the energy and we are so lucky. I mean, and Ricky would say it too. I know we're so lucky to get to talk to people like you and other our guests have just been phenomenal and
phenomenal.
it's so energetic and I hope. I hope we get to talk to you again. Actually, if
Yeah.
like we get to September, October, and well, hopefully we should talk to you probably in August if I knew I drew my Montana elk license, so I could talk you into coming and packing out something maybe.
Yeah.
But no, but no, but I'd like to hear I'd like to talk to you after the all like kind of after the race season. But
Yeah.
you never know. See, here's the problem with me. And Ricky lives in Minneapolis. I live here in Spearfish in the Black Hills. But you never know. I might just hop in the car and we might just head on down to Western States, and you're going
Yeah.
to see smiling faces and a "Don't Die Rusty" shirt, and you're going to say, because we want to support you as best we can, you know what I mean? And if I can say go or run or do it, you know what I mean, sit down there and cheer you on, that's what it's all about. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's about this is about picking people up and not tearing people down, and it's about smiles. And so I'm just feel so lucky that we get to chat with you.
Well, I feel exactly the same, and yeah, I mean, I would love it if you guys show up. It'll be the best. But even with support from afar, it means so much, and yeah,
Well, we
like you're doing the right thing here too, like having these conversations, and it's cool to fight with like-minded people because there's a lot of conversation of like the tough stuff in the world, and this is so uplifting and inspiring, and hearing everyone's stories of the fulfilled life and not dying rusty. I love that. I have this quote actually that growing up, I thought of a lot. But like, if I was to die tomorrow, would I be happy with everything I've done in my life? And I've been so lucky to be in that place of like, yeah, like I've lived so much already. I mean, I'm super excited for hopefully 100 years more, but so happy with
Mm-hmm.
what's been lived already, and hopefully more people can live like that, and we can also like support each other in doing that too, then that'll be awesome.
I I think we talked to Pat about that, didn't we? Like it was about like living every day in knowing it's a gift. I'm a big Stoics fan, and
Mhm.
Seneca said, "Death takes every second that we have that we've lived,
Mhm.
and we
Right.
can't get it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we don't live through that, live to the best of our lives, death has it anyway." But
Mhm.
it's awesome that we're going to go kicking and screaming in, and we're living a fulfilled life.
Yeah.
Speaking of Pat and smiles too, when we talked to him and he had mentioned you, like right away, I just go right in and I went right to your Instagram, and every video and photo of you're smiling, and that I was like right there. I'm like, yep, she's gonna be perfect for this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Just keep on smiling, and conversations like this get me so pumped up. I just absolutely love it.
Yeah, see, the right way to start the day.
It is the right way to start the day, so that's cool because we've also had the question of like, if if you died tomorrow, would you, would you be happy? And it's not that I'm looking for death; it's that I'm at peace.
Mhm.
I'm in with peace within myself, and I'm peace with what I've done. And do I want to do more? Yes,
Mhm.
but if I died tomorrow, it's not that I'm still searching for who I am, I guess.
We're just getting started.
We
Yeah.
are. So thank you so much for being with us. I truly appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and I can't wait to maybe we can spend a day in the mountains or something, then we can chat all things.
Oh, see, and that's the best place to chat is in the mountains because there's no
Right?
walls. There's
Yep.
all kinds of things to look at and see. So yeah, hopefully we can set up a time and go just do that. And hopefully if you're coming through the Black Hills, like I said, you always have a place to stay here.
Thank you.
Tomorrow, I'm hoping you get that t-shirt tomorrow.
Yes. I can't wait. I love your guys' hats. And it's the best saying ever. I love it. I'm going to put my dad on this podcast too. I'm like,
Awesome.
you got to listen.
Thank you.
He'll love it.
You'll get some stickers too
Okay.
that say
Perfect.
"Don't Die
Okay.
Rusty," and
Well,
so
I got a whole water bottle I can put them on.
there we go. And
Thank you.
I'm really thinking we might come down there. So,
Perfect.
What a great chat. Thank you.
well, thank you very much, and I appreciate everything you do.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, and have an amazing Sunday.
You too.
You too.
God
Bye.
bless.
Bye.